Alrighty, everybody, welcome to the show. I'm your host, Eric Beltran, joined by Riley Hill and Ainsley Leja, two goalkeepers for Liberty Women's Soccer. I'm pretty biased because I coach them, but I think two of the best goalkeepers around. Great players, but also great people off the pitch too. So super excited to have you guys. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so let's jump right in. First things first. I do want to offer some free advertisement. There's a company that I use, has nothing to do with y'all, for recruiting, and anybody that watches, I just want to give a free plug. Okay, so it's called Scouting Zone. Whenever I'm putting the schedule together for recruitment, it allows me to knock it out in like 10 minutes. Okay, and so basically a player emails me, wants me to come to a game. I search for a name in the schedule, and they spit out the schedule for me. So it's a great resource. So I just want to give a shout out to Brooke and Tara. I think they do a great job. It's a great product. And so anybody that wants to use it, I think it's maybe like for $300, $400 a year or $30 per event. So I wanted to start with that. But now getting into it, the first question I wanted to ask is kind of, y'all have been Division I keepers for 2 years now. Okay. And so going through the recruitment process, knowing what the level's like here, what are some of the qualities you think youth goalkeepers need to have or develop that will separate them at this level? Okay. And so I always joke and say, like, everybody here is a good shot stopper. I think like that's one of your main goals, is to just stop shots, but everybody can do that. And so that's kind of like your bare minimum requirement. So what else do you think keepers need to do or learn or be good at in order to succeed at Division I?
Yeah, so three things that I would say that are the biggest would be your confidence as a goalkeeper. I think mistakes can really get into your head. And so being confident in your abilities and what you can do is a big part of that. I would also say being mentally tough. Going through like 5 trainings a week with lift and games and travel in the fall, and then you have school on top of that. I think the biggest thing is coming to training each day and being able to perform your best and give everything to your team.
Yeah, sure. I think the confidence thing is a big piece. So I'm glad you mentioned that. Riley, anything you want to add to that?
Just to add to that, I think just like managing your emotions, like Ainsley kind of touched on that, but like being able to bounce back really fast after like a mistake. Like everybody makes mistakes. So just being able to like just think about the next play and just kind of improve from there. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, especially coming in as a freshman, as a sophomore, underclassman, that piece right there is difficult because you want to prove that you belong at this level. And I think sometimes maybe mistakes can build, right? Like you don't have the short-term memory that I think you learn and mature once you are here for a while. So, yep, good point. Talk a little bit about like maybe y'all's recruiting timelines or just navigating the process. Okay, so being a goalkeeper is difficult. And so, I as a recruiter, as a college scout, I might only see you in an event for one half, and maybe you have an error in that half. And I don't want to say that I've written you off, but it's a very specific position. So talk about like recruiting, maybe going to ID camps. I think ID camps in general are a very nerve-wracking environment, but even more so as a keeper, as a last line of defense. And so maybe navigating these things or maybe just some tips that y'all have.
Yeah, you want to go first, Ryan?
Yeah, I'll touch on that. For me, my recruiting process was a little weird just because of like COVID. I was kind of being like recruited like right during that like time frame. So coaches weren't really coming to games because we weren't having games, and ID camps were like not happening. So for me, like a big part of that was film. And I would just like encourage everyone to like make sure they're like recording everything they do, because like that's a big piece. Like if coaches can't come to your games, like you can always send them film and like they can see that. And then in ID camps, I think it's like really important, like if you're not getting a lot of action or like anything like that, just like make sure you're like directing your back line and like being loud, because like if you're loud, like that's gonna turn their heads and they're gonna look at you. So like, yeah, that will bring attention to you and like help them really see what you can do. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree with that last part that Rye said. I think being loud at ID camps and communicating is a big thing, because coaches will see that. Like if you have a back line playing in front of you and you don't know any of their names, I think that's going to be pretty like evident in how you play and then how it's going to lead into college. Yeah, so I'd say a big thing for me was COVID too during my recruitment process. I actually committed right before COVID like shut everything down, so I got pretty lucky about that. Um, I think going to ID camps is a big thing because I mean you can put your name out there, and at most ID camps there's other college coaches there too that can see you and watch you. But I would think that you need to like narrow down your search of schools to probably like 5 schools that you like really want to go to, and put like most of your time and effort into emailing and going to those ID camps of those schools.
Yeah, for sure. Big time. Definitely agree with that. I think to that point, we don't expect things to be perfect at the ID camp. I know you're working with a back line that maybe you don't have experience with, but y'all hit the nail on the head. I always encourage girls at ID camps or players or at any level to just like, okay, even if it's the 2 center backs directly in front of you, just get their names before the kickoff. So that way you can at least, have a baseline for your communication. And so I think that's something that's so easy, but can, people take notice of that. And so like Ainsley said, that does help put your name on the map. So kind of building from that, I want to go in the direction of everybody handles the transition different from high school to college. Okay. And so like I've seen both y'all's highlight tapes from high school. Like y'all were the woman in charge, and so like you could see it, like y'all had the persona, you had the dominance. And so it's so tough, I think, to be able to go from that to like, okay, now I'm starting fresh. Okay. And so now maybe I might be having to earn people's respect. I was the unquestioned starter. Maybe I'll have to sit for a year, maybe 2 years, whatever the case is. I'm gonna have to earn my stripes. So just from a mentality and a psyche standpoint, like how would you encourage incoming freshmen to deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me it stunk last year because I was coming in and I was told there's a good chance that like maybe I could start or get minutes, and I definitely didn't get as many minutes like as I wanted or thought I would get. And so like mentally for me it was like coming into training and doing the best I could, like staying focused all throughout training, trying to be clean like on every catch I would make. And then I also think a big part of it was being happy for the person in front of you and encouraging them, because like in the moment they're the ones on the field, and I want what's best for our team. And if I'm not out there, then I want to be able to encourage and give as much like effort to the person in front of me.
Yeah. For me, I've redshirted last year. And then this year, it was just all about like being positive and just like supporting Ainsley and doing everything that I did was helping her like get better. Like I was pushing her like every day to just like be competitive and be better. So, yeah.
It's such a hard thing for us as a staff to ask too, because like you're fighting for the same spot. And I don't pull any punches with that. Like that you want to compete your competitors. You're at the Division I level for a reason. But I can just say from experience, y'all are much better teammates than I am, because I've seen y'all both support the number one in front of you. And yeah, sometimes I think I've been in places where maybe there's some animosity there, but I think like the camaraderie that y'all show is really team first mentality. So definitely hats off to you guys. So thanks for sharing that. I want to talk about like body maintenance. Okay. And so a lot of people don't realize, like, I always think it'd be interesting if field players could have one session as a keeper in practice, because then they'd realize what y'all deal with all the time. But when you talk about the amount of ball striking y'all do and how that affects your hips, when you talk about the amount of times you're hitting the ground and how that impacts your back and your shoulders, the amount of times you're reaching and stretching for balls, the core strength required. Do you have any advice of like longevity? Okay. So like you're talking to 15, 16, 14-year-old girls and prospects that, they feel fresh as daisies right now, but obviously y'all both picked up some knocks over the years, and I've seen you navigate that. And so like anything advice as far as like stretching, core strength, anything in the gym they can do to help kind of mitigate some of these problems?
I would say like try to start early with like strengthening your like hips and your shoulders. I just got like those those band things, those rubber bands. And I've been like trying to do that like multiple times a day because my shoulders like haven't been good. But yeah, you don't really realize how much of a toll it's going to take on your body. So just get ahead of it and like start early to like strengthen them. And also like along the lines of like recovery, I think a big part is like your diet and like everything you eat, because what you put into your body is going to help you recover and like eventually like perform better. So yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with Ryan that you definitely want to start early with strengthening and rehab and all that stuff. I mean, this year, it felt like I was hurt most of the season or had a knock most of the season. And it's like I would do treatment like during the season, but it didn't really seem like it was helping. So I think starting early with stretching, I think the biggest things you want to strengthen is like your core, because I know that will help your back. And I didn't realize it till this year, but a big thing too is your hip flexor. I know that started bugging me after taking, I mean, countless like number of goal kicks, because you're just constantly hitting long balls. And so I think strengthening your hip flexor before it becomes a problem is the biggest thing, because once it becomes a problem, that's when it's hard to get healthy and, you know, start feeling better.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, yeah, that's so important. I think the strength of your shoulders, the strength of your hip flexors is big time. Because obviously, like, we have so many sessions just amongst the three of us to where, you know, if I don't want you hitting the ground a lot the day before a game, we're focusing a lot on crossing distribution. And so the amount of, you're right, the amount of goal kicks you take, that number climbs pretty easily, pretty fast. And so I think that's good advice. I want to talk about each of y'all for a second, and Ainsley, I'll start with you. So you touched on it some, obviously, like we kind of got a last minute transfer last year with Randy. You know, she did great. She was a, you know, heavy presence in the team, second team all conference. And we loved having her on the team. And so like, that was probably difficult for the rest of our goalkeeping core because, you know, she received most of the minutes. And, but yeah, I mean, you talked about like, okay, how could I support her? How could I lift her up? How could I, you know, have a team first mentality? And this year, you know, you really stepped into the role of like, okay, being the starter, right? And so, you know, your second team all region, keeper of the year in the ASUN. And it was really cool for me to kind of see you blossom in that role. So talk a little bit about, I think it's so important for younger keepers to be able to find their voice. Okay. And so like for you and Riley as well, to be able to, you know, kind of become the elder statesman within the goalkeeping core and within the team, and us needing y'all to step up. Like how can it be easier for you to like, okay, I'm talking to like a fifth year senior in front of me, but I've got to have some confidence with that. So just, would you talk on that piece for a little bit?
Yeah, I think for me, it was, you know, coming in as a freshman, you want to seem like you have like all the confidence in yourself, but necessarily you don't, because you don't necessarily like know everyone. You haven't been in the system before, and you know, so like trying to talk to a senior and like trying to help them out, like you don't want to like come off as you know, being arrogant or anything. So I think for me, the biggest thing was, you know, realizing that, you know, I'm a part of the team too, that I may be like starting in the future, and that talking to her and like being a leader early on will help me like in the future and in the coming years.
Yeah, for sure. And it was really cool for me to see you take strides in that area. And I feel like, you know, you just went from strength to strength. And so like, once you can kind of climb that initial wall, it gets easier. And I would just want to encourage the younger keepers with that to just keep at it. And I think sometimes, you know, a lot of times when y'all were freshmen, I was telling you like, y'all are saying the right things because I stood behind y'all in the goal for a lot of the sessions. And I just wanted to encourage you, like, you know, don't be afraid to say that. Don't be afraid to like, you know, because we were trying to prevent goals here. And so I think both of y'all have grown tremendously in that area of communication, organization. And Riley, I want to turn to you now because, you know, I remember having some difficult conversations with you your freshman year, and where you stood within the group, and kind of, you know, I saw some of your confidence waning a little bit. You wanted to prove again, you belonged at this level. Maybe there was, you know, this is the first time you've been away from home for this long. Maybe there's some homesickness in there. And so just talk to the audience a little bit about your growth during your spring semester of your freshman year. Okay. So like you received a lot of minutes, you started some games in the spring. I thought you killed it. You did a great job. You know, you really, and I thought to myself, okay, this is the Riley that I've seen in the past. You know, I'm happy to have her back. I think like we can work from this point and go forward. So talk a little bit about, you know, you're a pretty harsh critic on yourself. And so I guess, the mental battles that maybe you faced in that first year of college for you.
Yeah, so fall there was 4 of us and I was 4th string. So it was difficult, but like coming in, I like didn't really expect to be like the number one. Like I just didn't have that expectation for myself because like I am a rough critic, and like coming in, I was very like, oh, these girls are better than me. Like they can play so much like better. I don't know, have a longer range than me, like all this stuff. But I think it really like my confidence came in the spring when it was just me and Ainsley, and I like realized like, oh, like, okay, like I can do this. Like I can compete at this level. Like I'm not horrible. But yeah, I think that just came from focusing on what I'm doing right and not really just pinpointing every mistake that I have and looking at everything that I do wrong, but instead just being positive and like seeing my little improvements and like knowing that I am improving, just like seeing that really helped with my confidence. But, yeah.
Yeah, definitely a good word for the younger keepers out there. Okay, so I would be remiss if I did not just open up the floor to you guys. Okay, so I've asked my questions, I've kind of had my say, but if there's anything that you have for the audience, maybe for parents, for prospects, for current student athletes, anything that y'all have experienced maybe along your faith journey, anything that has helped you, maybe like calm nerves before games, or you know, anything maybe within a game after like a bad goal is conceded, or whatever the case is. You know, if there's something that's been on your heart, and if there's not, that's totally fine too. But definitely want to just give you all the stage. So Ainsley, start with you, and then if you have nothing, or if you have something, then Riley can go next.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely say on a part that you just said, if you give up a goal or a mistake in a game, I think you just got to come back stronger, like make the next save, make the next play. Otherwise, I mean, it's tough from there on out. And I would say to make sure that you're having fun while you're playing, go to a college that you like the coaches, you like the atmosphere, the culture's good. Not somewhere just because they're good at soccer, but really go somewhere where you think you'll grow in yourself spiritually, mentally, physically. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think you touched on something. Oh, the fun piece. I think that's so important. I think sometimes like we want to win games, we're pushing that hard, and I think I don't want that to ever get missed in this process. Like I like to have fun with you guys. You know that we're always joking on the field. I feel like I use a million props with you. We're using tennis balls, water bottles, pool noodles, bungee cords. So yeah, I have so much fun with you guys, and I just appreciate y'all so much. So thanks for sharing that, Ainsley.
Yeah, and going off of what Ainsley said, I think the one thing I wanted to mention was like when picking a school, like think about it as if like soccer like wasn't there. Like, would you still want to go to that school? Because like you don't know what's gonna happen. Like you still want to be happy at that school, whether or not you have soccer. Like soccer shouldn't really define you or what school you go to. So yeah.
Sweet. Great advice. Thanks, guys. Definitely shout out to the audience. We really appreciate you guys. We appreciate your investment in women's soccer as a whole. Like just people that want to be genuinely growing the game. And so thanks, Ainsley. Thanks, Riley, for your time. And we look forward to seeing you next time.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Us.